to discuss this as well as other issues if we have time. I'm joined by Liberal Democrat Senator David Leyonhjelm. Thanks very much for your company.
Good afternoon.
Now, as I understand it, these changes that the party room for the coalition have approved will go to the Senate before they will go to the House, which means that, in a sense, whatever the Senate amends will be all that the House then looks at. I'm extremely cynical whether there's much chance of these changes offend, insult and humiliate being stripped out of 18C and replaced with harass will be approved by someone like Nick Xenophon, without whom they'll get blocked in the Senate. What's your take on that?
I don't know that there's a consistent view from the Nick Xenophon team. I know that there are a range of views within the four of them and the three senators in particular. So I don't know where they'll end up. I have heard them say from time to time they think change is required. Whether they think this change is the right change, I can't anticipate that. I'm sorry.
But if you're a betting man, where would you sit on it? I mean, walk through a door, life depends on it. Which one would you go with? Does it pass the Senate without major amendments, or does it fail on the 18C part but perhaps pass on the Human Rights Commission procedural part?
Well, there are three elements to it, three changes I think that are mooted. One is the change from the aggrieved person representing just that aggrieved group, potential group. Replacing that with a reasonable person test, which I think would be a big improvement. There is the procedural stuff, which almost everybody thinks is well and truly overdue, and then there's the changes to 18C itself. So even 2 out of 3 would be progress, and I'd be surprised if Xenophon and his team said a flat no to any changes. I don't think they're into that. I'd be surprised, in fact, if they weren't prepared to negotiate around insult and offend and humiliate. We might not end up with what the Liberal Party has decided would be their preferred option, but my feeling is we'll end up with change.
OK, that's interesting. And Labor, do you think that they'll come to the party on any of this, or is it more likely that they'll hold the line on everything except for perhaps those procedural changes to the Human Rights Commission?
Yeah, my guess is just procedural stuff would be acceptable to them. They may go for the reasonable person test. That's a very well-established concept in the common law, and the Racial Discrimination Act, as far as I know, is the only Australian law which applies a different test for subjectivity. And it may be that they'll agree to the Racial Discrimination Act falling into line with all the other legislation, but I wouldn't bet on that one. But the procedural stuff, I think almost everybody agrees that the way the Human Rights Commission has been handling 18C complaints, it's self-evidently wrong. It's leading to great hardship.
Well, something needs to change there, no doubt.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, is there a tinge of orange, Senator, in either that lapel badge or the tie that you've got on? You strike me as a big advocate of Harmony Day. I would have thought you'd want to promote it and get as much orange onto your garb as possible.
I'm not interested in symbolic claptrap. I never wear badges and those little ribbony things and stuff. It doesn't change anything. It's like all the closing the gap stuff. It's also symbolic claptrap. Makes no practical difference to anybody other than it's virtue signalling, basically. I won't have a bar of it. All
right, let's get back to 18C if I can. Before we run out of time, we will have to go to this media conference that the PM does when he and George Brandis stand up. Are you surprised at, let's call it a backflip, because in a sense that's what it is, the backflip from not so much the government but from this PM in particular? I've been getting sent quotes all day, you'll be unsurprised to know, from the other side of the major party divide on all the various things that Malcolm Turnbull has said previously about there being no interest, no agenda, no looking at change to the Racial Discrimination Act. Does the backflip surprise you? And what do you think brought it about? Was it pressure from the right flank, or do you think that it was a timing thing? Obviously, in the wake of the tragedy of Bill Leak, this became more prominent at a pointier end, I suppose. How do you see it?
Well, I know Malcolm Turnbull's private view is not that far from mine. He doesn't think 18C achieves anything worthwhile, and he personally would favour some sort of change. I don't know exactly what his the details are on that, but I know he's sympathetic to change. His issue is that the Liberal Party incorporates a broad spectrum of opinion. There are people on the one hand who say, well, I don't favour change on principle. There are others who say, I don't favour change because it'll cost me my seat, because of people will switch their vote. And then there are others who favour change again on principle. You know, Malcolm is not a dictator any more than Bill Shorten is the dear leader of the Labor Party. They have to deal with their party. And I think he's probably been testing attitudes, sniffing the breeze even, to find out which way majority opinion rests. And leaving it to the party room, which is what he has done, is in fact quite an intelligent way to deal with this issue. It is controversial, and within his party at least, it's not controversial from my point of view. I'd abolish 18C overnight if I could do it. But
you'd probably abolish the Human Rights Commission overnight, wouldn't you? I mean, surely you'd be in favour of that,
yeah.
save for taxpayers?
Absolutely I would, yes. I don't think they're necessary. In fact, I'm a bit dubious about quite a lot of anti-discrimination law. I mean, the question really is, why should the law intrude into discrimination, one kind of discrimination, when we all discriminate one way or another? I've never known a straight bloke yet that doesn't discriminate against girls that he thinks is ugly, for example. Should the law intrude on that? You know, it's not something that we would think the law should intrude into. Why do we think it's okay to discriminate on other grounds?
The law does intrude into that, doesn't it? I mean, we've got laws to protect exactly that. Surely you don't think it's appropriate that people discriminate on whatever grounds, do you? It's a matter of where you think the laws should then go in terms of how they handle that.
No, these are private matters, and when there's a practical outcome, such as refusing to allow a black person or a Jew or somebody like that to join an association or a club, you know, it becomes a bit of a grey area.
Senator, I'm going to have to jump into you. Sorry to do this, but the PM and George Brandis have just taken to the podium to talk about this outcome. We're going to have to listen into that. Senator Leyonhjelm, appreciate your time. This is the Prime Minister and his Attorney General. Let's have a listen.